Hello everyone and welcome to Don't Be Bored. Today I'm here to review for you Res Arcana Duo. This is the brand new 2-player only version of Res Arcana, which can also be used as an expansion, and just know it was provided to me by Asmodee UK for the review. For those of you that have played the original Res Arcana, it works very much the same with a couple of minor differences, and we'll touch on those in a bit. But for those that haven't, well, let's give you a flavour of how it actually works. Each round you're going to generate some resources based on some income symbols on cards, mages, artifacts, that sort of stuff. Each turn you're going to do one action back and forth. That's normally something like activating one of your artifacts, triggering its power, maybe turning 1 red into 2 green or something like that. Maybe paying for a monument that you're putting into play in front of you. Maybe that has points associated with it, or maybe it also has an ability that you might want to activate on a future turn. The game is going to go back and forward with players taking turns until they've both passed. The first person to pass will get a first player token for the next round, which is also worth a victory point. And, well, you keep going round after round with the sort of production, then actions phase, back and forward until either someone checks for the victory, or at the end of a round, someone has got over 10 victory points. At this point, well, you work out whoever's got the most points, and whoever has the most points wins. So much like with the original Res Arcana, you've got some great solid gameplay here. I love the back and forth, the way its turns are very quick. You're activating a card, turning it, and that's probably it spent for the round unless you have a way to unexhaust a card. So chaining them in the right order, right, this one generates me some red resource that I can then spend when I activate this card, that sort of stuff, that's what you're looking for. And I really like that over a turn or turns, you can work out, right, this is what I'm aiming for. I'm aiming to get 4 gold to buy a monument. Okay, so I can generate these resources, then this other card will let me turn those resources into a gold or some gold, or maybe store the gold on a card so I won't get it until next round, that sort of thing. You can sort of see, right, this is what I'm going to be aiming for and work towards it. I really like that sort of gameplay that Res Arcana has. However, I think some people do have issue with this gameplay, and I can certainly see where their thoughts come from. Depending on the way the cards come out, you can feel, I just don't have anything that does synergize. And a brilliant example of this is some of the cards in the deck are, say, creatures or dragons, and they have a symbol denoted on them. And you might have a card that works brilliantly for that, maybe allowing you to unexhaust a creature or spend your creature to do something extra powerful, effectively exhausting like 2 of your cards for a special ability. Now that's great, but it might mean that actually with the cards I have in my hand and what I can draw, because you have sort of your own draw pile created at the beginning of the game, I don't have access to any creatures. So this card that would otherwise be really cool is kind of worthless to me. And I think some people certainly have issue with that. If you're happy to go into the game and sort of just do the best with what you can do, then you'll like this. But if you're maybe thinking, I've been locked out of a potential strategy from the get-go, you might not vibe with that. It does, though, give a great sense of progression as you do start to play more cards in front of you. So at the start, you have very small turns and quite short rounds, but by the end, each round, you're doing and activating multiple cards, buying a monument, and different things. So you're doing quite a lot on a round. Even though like individual turns aren't necessarily longer, each round at the beginning very short. You're only activating maybe 1 or 2 cards. By the end, maybe activating 4 or 5 different powers and triggering things off. And having that sort of sense of I can now produce a load of resources, so spend a load of resources to do things. The game does feature a lot of symbology, and I think the first time you look at the cards, you are a little bit like, wow, there's a lot of stuff. There's costs, there's abilities, and very little text, to be fair. A lot of it is just done by symbols and icons, that sort of stuff. Your first game, you're going to learn some of those, And I think after that, it's an absolute breeze because of that iconography. I think they're absolutely fantastic. It's very clear, right? This is what this card produces each round. So at the start of a round, you're going to get that resource, or maybe a choice of these two resources. This is the ability. Maybe the first time it takes you a second just to be like, right, I'm spending, I've got to rotate this card, spend the green, but then that is giving me a gold. But I have to then put the gold on the card. The first time you read that, it might be like, oh, right, that's quite a few different symbols. But actually, once you are playing and up and running, after that first game, you're like, yep, rotate the card, spend, done. It's super fast, and the icons just really work. I think it does maybe take you that first game to get past that, or first few rounds of the first game to start knowing what all of it does. So it could put people off just by the sort of symbol-heavy look of the cards, but don't let it put you off. I do think after a few turns, it all really does make sense, and the iconography is actually really sort of a smooth process, so it's not like text heavy on cards. And that means there is a good amount of space for some artwork. I think it generally does a quite cool way of bringing this sort of magic world to life. And it's not necessarily like a happy magic. It's quite a sort of dark, grungy sort of magic feel to it. I like it. It's certainly a cool take, and I think the artwork of the cards does a good way of sort of bringing some of those items and things to life. I did mention earlier that there is something a little bit different about this two-player game, and the biggest thing is that the direct attacks on your opponent are gone. Those things where in the original you'd have to sort of have a card that would react to stop, like otherwise you lose some of your green health resources. Yeah, those are gone, and I don't mind seeing the back of those at all. It always felt a little bit meh when you were playing Res Arcana at 2 when that happened, so I'm glad they're not in this, because it just feels like your opponent gets like a super one-up on you because they've taken a turn and disrupted you, rather than just maybe taken the card that you were hoping to buy, that sort of thing. I kind of like that they're not in there in this. But of course you can be using this as an expansion and shuffle the cards together, so you could still get that. If you own the original Res Arcana, should you go and buy this one? I don't know it does enough different. You could use it as an expansion, it says that in the rulebook, and I think that's what a lot of people might use it for if they do own the original. If you don't own the original, well, you've got a bit of a choice. This one has a much smaller box. It's perfect for those two players. Because it's a smaller box, it's much more portable. This one I could see throwing in like a rucksack when you're going on a small trip or something like that, and you don't have like a hold luggage or something like that you might plop a board game into. So this one has that portability. It has that thing where you know this is exactly the right stuff I need for 2 players. If you're traveling with 3 players though, that might come a little bit of a problem. And well, it doesn't, like I say, it doesn't necessarily feel that much different from Res Arcana. It just feels like you're playing that from this box rather than playing it 2-player from the original box. I like that it's portable. I like that I can take this one with me, but I don't know if it will necessarily stay in the collection on its own. It's probably just going to get put into either, for most people, it'll get either put into the Res Arcana box, shuffled in as an expansion, or you'll just get the original because it has the wider player count. And that's where I stand on Res Arcana Duo. I like it. I like the original, but it doesn't do anything that different. I think if you're looking for one of the versions, the original is fantastic and plays with more players. This one is smaller and portable. That will give you which one to go for, as long as you like those sort of turns where you're doing lots of little turns, but over the course of the game they're going to build up, allowing you to progress, get more stuff, trigger more stuff, and, well, hopefully get to 10 points quicker than your opponent. I do like the gameplay. I like the gameplay from this box. I'm just not sure why it's entirely necessary. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. Will you be picking this one up? Let me know if you've already played it. Also, let me know what your thoughts were. Smash the like button. And, well, until next time, hopefully this has helped. And have a brilliant Arcana-filled day of gaming.